Here we are at factsanddetails.com, where there is a article entitled Phoenician Religion, Child Sacrifices, Life and Art. Under Phoenician, I guess it's Carthaginian, specifically. Carthaginian child sacrifice, and evidence that refutes it. Okay, let's do that. And the anonymous author says, firstborn sons and daughters were authored by Carthaginian parents, Phoenician parents, as sacrifices in times of grave problems, such as famine, war, drought, or plague. The 3rd century Greek writer Cletakos wrote, the Phoenicians, and especially the Carthaginians, whenever they seek to obtain some great favor, vow one of their children, burning it as a sacrifice to a deity to gain success. There stands in their midst a statue of Cronus. Its hands extend over a bronze brazier, or bronze brazier, probably a bronze brazier, the flames of which engulfed the child. When the flames fall upon the body, the limbs contract and the open mouth seems almost to be laughing, until the body slips quietly into the brazier. The ritual was carried out on moonlit nights. Children had their throats slit and were placed into a burning pit before the statue of the god Baal Haman, to the sound of music from lyres, tambourines, and flutes. The ashes and remains were placed in a special graveyard, presided over by the goddess Tanit. Parents were supposed to look on when their children died. Children were expected to be offered willingly as an offer to Tanit. The rich were expected to offer their children like everyone else, but they often purchased substitutes from the poor. If the mother of the substitute cried out at the crucial moment, she lost her blood money as well as her child. Quote, white flutes and drums drowned out the wailing. A priest took the child from its mother, slit the baby's throat, and burned the body. The child's body would then intercede for its people. More than 20,000 children are believed to have been sacrificed. Dr. David Soren told the New York Times, quote, there was a peculiar dualism in Carthage, in which the trust for commerce, prosperity, and the good life were blinded by religion so intense that the richest Carthaginian could cheerfully consign a son or daughter to the flames of the sacrificial pit to redeem a pledge to the gods. End quote. Romans were horrified by Carthaginian infanticide. They were equally appalled by stories of Dido's death and the fact that the commander Humlar jumped in a fire after losing a battle at Syracuse 251 years before Christ. And here's infanticide. I don't think that's technically sacrifice, but here we have some more evidence that refutes Carthaginian child sacrifice. Jarrett Lobel wrote Archaeology magazine, quote, a team led by University of Pittsburgh physical anthropologist Jeffrey Schwartz has refuted the long-held claim that the Carthaginians carried out large-scale child sacrifice from the 8th to 2nd centuries before Christ. The researchers announced their results this year after spending decades examining the cremated remains of 540 children from 348 burial urns excavated in the Tophet, a cemetery outside Carthage's main burial ground. Schwartz determined that about half the children were prenatal or would not have survived more than a few days beyond birth, and the rest died between 1 month and several years after birth. Only a very few children were between 5 and 6 years old, the age at which they begin to be buried in the main cemetery. The mortality rates represented in the cemetery are consistent with prenatal and infant mortality figures found in today's societies. There's a credible, medical and biologically consistent explanation of the Tophet burials that offers an alternative to sacrifice, says Schwartz. While it is possible that the Carthaginians may have occasionally sacrificed humans, as did their contemporaries, the extreme youth of the Tophet burials suggests the cemetery was not only for the sacrificed, but also for the unborn and very young, however they died. And since at least 20% of them were not even born when they were buried, they clearly were not sacrificed. Schwartz also has another type of evidence to support his claim that the Tophet children died of natural causes. In many societies, newborns and very young children are not treated as individuals, as older children and adults are, he says, suggesting they wouldn't be considered appropriate for sacrifice. A clue that the Carthaginians didn't view these children as distinct entities comes from Schwartz's analysis, which shows that in many urns, the remains are of several different individuals. Quote, there can be 4 or 5 of the same right or left cranial bone in the same urn, but there would not be enough other bones to reconstruct the same number of individuals, says Schwartz. The remains of multiple children were gathered up, perhaps even from different cremations, and sometimes mixed in with charcoal from small branches of olive trees, used for the funeral pyre.